Welcome back to The Anti-Coach. This is Sophia, your host, and we are continuing our discussion with Nnamdi Ibe. So many good things in this episode. We've got immune system, spiritual well-being, decisions and free will, good versus bad. Enjoy. Yeah. Okay, so now we have that foundation there. Mm-hmm. So the key is what I find even more fascinating, mm-hmm. and part of what my gift is to help people to see where they're currently already using their energy, mm-hmm. harnessing that, mm-hmm. and then using that to fuel more of what we want to manifest in this life, as well as remain in alignment with who we are and our purpose.
Right.
So, how do you, let's just take decision making first.
Okay.
Because without the choices that we make and our collective decisions really gives us exactly where we are right now. Mm-hmm. So, if we don't want to continue getting the same things that give us the results of where we are now, mm-hmm. we got to do something about that.
Right.
But if we are doing well, we're progressing, we want to be inspired more to engage our purpose more, we need more awareness. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, when you make a decision,
hopefully good ones.
Well, and sometimes it's not an either or. It's not a bad or a good decision, right? Mm-hmm. It's the best. We're doing the best that we can do with what we have, because right. we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And when anytime we make a decision and there's a little fear, that fear is the edge of resistance of keeping us in our comfort zone, mm-hmm. or going past the resistance, whether it be taking it brick by brick down and getting mm-hmm. through the wall, mm-hmm. or melting that, whatever it is, whatever your imagination, gives you, mm-hmm. of that edge of resistance. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's neither good nor bad. That's how I look at it.
Gotcha.
So when you make a decision, mm-hmm. And the shit doesn't go exactly like you planned.
That was a lot.
But exactly. So what I think it's important for people to understand, once we understand that process, mm-hmm. that helps us through life. So what do you do when that happens? When it doesn't go the way you think it should or wanted it to?
Okay, sure. That's actually a very good question. So I like to tell people I'm a pessimist.
Okay.
But this is probably more so an optimistic viewpoint for a self-proclaimed pessimist.
Okay.
Right? So what I believe is that I'm a huge believer in fate and destiny.
Okay.
So I believe things happen exactly as they should. Mm-hmm. And when we make certain decisions and they don't go the way we want it, mm-hmm. that's because we are trying to control a reality that we have little control of. Mm-hmm. But of course, being human beings...
Okay, but so let me interject. What about free will?
What about free will?
Well, if we are making our decisions and based on what you're just saying,
yep.
is that
truly free will? Right. So check this out. So hopefully not too long-winded an answer. When I was in college, I took a class called Manichean psychology. Okay. And what it was it was studying the process of thought. Mm-hmm. Right? It was a psychological / philosophical class, essentially. Mm-hmm. And one of their questions they had was about free will. Do you believe we have free will? Mm. Prior to that class, I said we had free will. Mm-hmm. After that class, I said, I don't think we have free will.
Really?
Really. And then now that you asked me that question, I struggle heavily with it.
Okay.
Mostly because I believe that we do have free will in the sense that we have a choice to make in situations. Yes. So the fact that you get the opportunity of an A and B or maybe mm-hmm. other, mm-hmm. that means you have choice. Mm-hmm. And by choice, that means you can choose one for some reason. Mm-hmm. Manichean psychology, which studies the process of thought, says, hey, if step A led you to step B, you're going to land at step C. 1 plus 1 is 2, right? Meaning, if I'm making a decision, information is coming to me, and I'm using that information to make the decision. And the absence of the information could lead me to a new variable, which would be a different decision. So am I actually in control of the information that's coming into my head, since I'm using this faculty to operate this body and make decisions, and the information that's coming to me is mostly not by choice, right? I can go to it and research it, but things are happening.
Not by choice, because of the programming of our subconscious at a subconscious level, or because of what?
Well, here's the thing, right? The world operates nonetheless. There's this quote that says, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. Perspective, right? So it doesn't actually matter what the action is. What matters is the choice that you make.
Okay.
The decision you make, right? How you internalize it.
Okay, so it's not so much than the decision.
It's not so much the decision.
It's
how you internalize it.
Yes.
How you internalize
how you frame it.
How you
if you're
frame
going to
it.
use a
That's
psychology type word,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So
you hear that, guys? It's not so much of the decision that you make. Just make one. I want to say just fucking make one, because that's going to keep the momentum going. And the decision making process, regardless what we talked about before, is that fear. Remember, that's the resistance that's coming up for us. That's the level at which we're at. That means we can be excited about that, because that means on the other side of that, that's growth. That's expansion. So the decision is not, is it good or bad? The decision comes with what is the perspective of however that decision comes out.
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. The only thing about the good and bad part, and this is like a whole nother potential long-winded part of the question.
Yes, I know. We've had
is the morality. Yeah, right? Like how you arrive to the morality of it all.
Yeah, and you know what? I would have to say I haven't made always the most moral decisions. However, I know that in retrospect, and I used to beat myself up about it, that those decisions were necessary based on the shit that I needed to learn, but also the shit that I needed to learn.
Right. We can answer this?
Yes.
All right, cool.
If I needed to, as I go back in reflection, I'm able to connect the dots of those decisions. So even so, I beg to differ on you with that one.
Well, here's my thing, right? In the end of the day, right, we got to make a choice, right? And we're hoping that we have enough information to make what we categorically feel is a good decision, right? And that decision could be judged by different people with different end outcomes, and the effect of that decision can also have both positive and negative consequences depending on who's affected, right? So that which is where we have the hard part of saying good decision versus bad decision, right? But I like to believe that at least on the more elementary level, because we are talking about a lot of high level, deeply philosophical things here, people know certain rights from certain wrongs, right? Like in general, right? Because it's supposed to help our morality, right? Like stealing, killing, lying, these things. We know it all happens. We know people do it. We know
Lying
sometimes
is
you don't have.
relative.
It is, right? Stealing can also be relative, right? Sure. So, I understand that, but in general, some of these things, the consequences that follow them, right? When we're trying to make overwhelmingly a good decision, and that's what I mean by that information. If you had no perspective on which to make a decision based on at all, because even though it's information, that perspective, that pre-programming was put in there by somebody before you that's helping frame the rest of the information coming out, right?
Yeah, and I really, this is kind of off topic of what I want to get into, but I will say this, I have a completely different perspective on that. One, and I'll add to it, and then we can go to the next point. So for me, it is a matter of not being attached to the outcome or having certain expectations from people. For instance, if I'm dating someone or if I'm married and my partner goes out and has an affair, did he do that to me? No, I don't believe he did. That is something that he is dealing with himself. Now, do I play a part or take responsibility? Perhaps. Depends. We've always got to find something to see how we can learn from a situation. But am I going to hate him? No. That's his journey. If we decide to split, divorce, I'm still not going to hate him. Of course, I'm going to experience sadness. I'm not going to be sad, but I'm going to experience sadness. Experience where I might feel, say, betrayal. But really, it's because he didn't do it to me. So that's just an example of, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But
it's a very unique perspective. But I do appreciate it. I've never actually looked at it from sort of that framework that you've placed it in.
And let me tell you how freeing it is.
I bet it is freeing.
And that, no, it doesn't mean that I'm going to, and that's where probably you might figure like the moral can be inserted in there. So I'm not going to lash out and behave like he did.
Right.
That's not my journey. So I can choose to, I don't know, maybe I'll stay, maybe I won't.
Right.
It depends upon the situation.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm not in it. And I can't say that for someone else.
Right.
Either. Yeah.
No, I completely understand it. And I agree with it, actually. It's just, it's profound because I think hearing it explained in that way, I have never encountered it explained that way. Because what I always say is, you are in charge of your own happiness, right? If we're if you're still following the rule of life is 90%, how you react to it, 10% what happens to you. And then we also talk about the pre-programming of how you feel you're supposed to feel in that scenario. Exactly. So when you understand that you are completely in charge of your own faculty, your own essence and your existence, then you can separate yourself. You can still have the feelings. We're human. You're going to go through the motions, right? Yeah. But in terms of how you I guess let it impact you, and you
cover so much more fast. You recover.
Right, so much faster.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Because you're not carrying that like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did this to me, and oh my gosh,
absolutely, absolutely. And our health matters. People underscore how important you're supposed to, guard your mind, your body, your spirit, your essence. And what you're saying there is like one of the primary ways that you can achieve that. I mean, there's so many people walking around here that would be so much more happier if they learn to practice that doctrine that you just explained.
Yeah, I'm not the inventor of it, but it's through my studies and through my practice that it wasn't always like that. Everything that we learn as we unlearn the pre-programming takes practice. It's a habit.
It is a habit.
We get into the habit of, like a belief system. A belief system is just something that we keep telling ourselves over and over again. So if you were told as a child you were stupid or you're never going to amount to, or that you were bad at math, or you were, those are continued belief systems. Or that you're not creative. We are all creators. We are all creative.
We're all imaginative. We all have the capacity.
But we just don't practice it.
Right.
And society and constructs have
put limits on all that.
Yeah.
So awaken your inner guru.
That's right. That's the whole point. So one of the things that for me that keeps me aligned is constantly connecting to my body. So
absolutely, that's very important.
Yes, especially being in the field that you're in, your mind, body, as you mentioned, is important for our health. So where there becomes an issue is when people are disconnected with their body. So for instance, especially in this time, let's take the immune system. The immune system has been a focus of my life for a very long time.
Okay.
And so we were taught from the age of 14 is when, that's how old I was, to listen to your body. My mom started instilling that to us, in us, instilling it in us. And the little nuances and the subtleties, say, in our immune system. So like with COVID-19 right now, you get a little thing in your throat, you're like, oh, or something going on with your sinus, that's your first line of defense. So that, if we can be aware of that, and so everyone has become more aware of that, the subtleties, we're like in tune to it, and we're practicing it even when we hadn't before. Now we can say, oh, let me go get some salt water, Himalayan salt water, for instance. Maybe gargle, maybe put some apple cider vinegar in your water. These are things that I've done for many, many years. But I love it because it's all over everywhere now.
Yeah.
Immune system, system.
Yep. It's awesome. It's awesome.
So, as for our spiritual well-being, the subtleties of the feeling as the root of our intention or our feeling or our inner navigation system, whereas the thinking are symptoms, they're symptomatic of the root of the subtleties of our gut, of our navigation system. So we were talking, and as many people are heavily mental, they think things through, which is not a bad thing, not saying that, but the disconnect of the body and the mind, we pull away from sometimes. So how do you stay connected to your inner navigation, your inner guru, as you make decisions, as you go through your day at work, for instance? If you're at the hospital, you're seeing patients. Tell me about that.
So for me, I'm much like you. So I also became sort of a certain level of self-aware and being in tune, mind, body, spirit. It actually started when I was playing sports. Maybe perhaps I've always had a scientific mind. So when I was taking science classes and I read about the human body, I said, oh, I can apply this in my sports somehow. Maybe get stronger, faster, eat better. You know, this is what's actually going on a molecular level. Those kind of things. That's when I became more aware of myself and my existence of myself. Probably because that was the first time I was told that there was we have some kind of information on the programming. So I said, okay, I would like to go on this journey of self-automation, learning how to be more in control of my being at that age. And when you have that kind of, I guess, curiosity and intrigue, it opens you up to any information that helps you become self-aware, become more in control of your mind, your emotions, your body, what's going on, being in tune. So it's kind of like, did the chicken come before the egg? I don't know. But I've always sort of thought a certain way, personally. So by the time I started my career and I'm working and it's helped.
You mean the chicken before the egg in terms of the feeling in your body and the thought?
In terms of becoming self-aware and being scientific about it. So I kind of derailed, I guess, a little bit, right? Okay. So I'm just saying that I don't know if the intrigue came from the information I was getting, or is it that my scientific mind was going to do this anyway, and this just happened to be my passion, and I found it, and it awakened it. Does that make sense?
Right. I feel like we all have that within us. So it's like we talked about earlier, it's just depending upon at what point in your life do you have this awakening that it occurs and then you become aware of it. because we always intrinsically have it.
Right.
Right?
Correct. It's always there. We're just trying to learn how to be more in tune with it,
Right.
be more in control, be more mindful of it, be more aware of it.
Right.
You know, kind of like how you gave the explanation about, say, the husband and wife, and the husband that might be stepping out. You know, when he makes a decision that you may consider,
Or it could be the wife.
or the wife.
It could be.
It could be the wife.
Yeah.
But the decision is made, and it impacts you negatively, and it is not the decision you would have liked that the individual, the other party, would have made at that time. But because you have this self-awareness, and you have this awareness,
and even you can go so far as to not even want them to make a certain decision. That's the level of it. Is just pure acceptance for who he or she is.
Absolutely. And you know, once upon a time, we used to live like this. We
Yes.
weren't all so judgy. We learned to
As kids.
And as kids, absolutely as kids. So it's not
That's
even
right.
that long ago.
Because even like you might have remembered from your class in that psychology from 1 to 7. If you see that age group, they are free spirited. They are, you know, just their imagination is flowing.
Absolutely.
And then and sometimes it goes up to age 10, but then after that,
society gets a hand on it. We put limits on it.
Yeah.
We try to tell you about what reality should look like.
Right.
And it slowly starts to erode away at that magic.
That art is not going to make you any money.
That's right.
Do something else.
That's right.
You know, but
we put limits. We start putting hard limits on the human brain, and we can achieve anything. It's all
how
about
do you
limits.
keep expanding your limits?
Oh, that's a great question. This is an exciting question.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that self-awareness and that intrigue and that I don't know which one came first, the chicken or the egg. So when that curiosity was ignited in me about learning how to be more in full control of myself, I started reading anything that would do that. That included Asian culture. That included martial arts and the disciplinary thoughts. There's different schools of thoughts on philosophy about this. They talk about energy, chakras. It's so deep, I think. So I grew up around the age of the internet coming to age. Somehow I stumbled either on a blog or a book. I don't recall, right? And I read about that you can actually animate in your dreams. Yeah. Prior to that, I had no idea,
like
no
lucid
concept.
Dreaming?
It's not quite lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming just means that it's very clear and vivid for you as you are dreaming, right?
There's a little bit more to it, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think this is the part that I'm going to go in. So in the self-automating is the... You're right. I think this is the definition of lucid dreaming. You can become self-aware of yourself in the dream.
Correct.
Where you know that you are in a dream state.
Lucid dreaming.
And then you can take control of your actions in the dream. When I learned you could do that at a young age before, like I think I was maybe 11.
Really?
Oh yeah. That's why I said I stumbled on this. It blew my mind. And then what I was reading actually had the practices of how you could go about doing it. So I said...
In episode 8, we continue our discussion with Nnamdi Ibe on his lucid dreaming process, as well as how he went into a depression from bullying and suicidal ideation, you're 11 years old. Began his transformation. Thanks for listening. You read this blog or book, then what?